No.
Well, I see that now.
Alright, so let's look at the bell ringer. Actually, you'll have just a couple of seconds while I do attendance, and then we'll look at the bell ringer. Alright, so Leah's not here, 6, Emma's not here, 20 and 21, JC's down in the office really quick. Oh, he's not here. Alright. That's what
I still don't got no book. I hope you check the
So I said Leah, Emma, and Coach.
Okay, you think that's it.
Mr. Kenny?
Nope. Alright, let's go over this one. Hey guys, I only have 16 of 18 responses. Oh wait, that's... No, yeah, 16 of 18 responses. When I get back to that computer, I'm stopping that poll. Who called my name?
I did.
Yes, ma'am.
Never mind.
Okay. You sure? Then ask it. Alright, so let's talk about this
You heard
one.
me?
Huh?
You heard me? Hey,
No.
Mr. Kenny, how was your weekend?
I have no clue what you said. What did you say?
How was your weekend? My homework incomplete.
Your homework's incomplete?
Yeah.
Then bring it back to me by the end of the day, and it's not late. If you turn it in tomorrow, it's 10% off.
Cool.
Okay.
What?
What?
So I could have been turning it in during enrichment this whole time, sitting here straight.
No. He say that all the time.
I say that every time.
Well, I've never heard.
I don't listen to you, Mr. Kenny. I'm aware, Salita. All right, moving on. So,
You completely ignore my question.
I appreciate the question. We have a lot to cover, though, because we have an understanding check today. So, anyways, up here. On the last test, Maria earned a score equivalent to a z-score of negative 0.8. The mean of the test was an 80 with a standard deviation of 5. What is a z-score of negative 0.8? Tell her, select all that apply. So 8 of us, quite a few of us said that Maria's score was better than 21% of students. How'd you come up with that? Using the table? Oh. What table? I think we're talking about that z-score table.
Dang, yeah.
Dang, that's a z-score, right. So let me go to a z-score table really quickly. I got it somewhere in here. Here we go. So I go to a z of negative 0.8. So negative 0.8, and it was 0 after that. So right there, the area underneath that curve is 0.2119. So to be more accurate, she's better than 21.19% of students. So we want to recognize that percentage can come off a z-score table. How else could I have gotten the percentage off that z-score?
Didn't you go all the way down there?
Well, I gave you a z-score of negative 0.8,
Yeah.
right? And it's understood that the hundredths place would be 0, right? So negative 0.8 on the z-score, and I had to go to a hundredths place of 0. There it is. Okay? All right. How else could I have gotten to that answer other than the table? No idea? Calculator, thank you. So if I had, because remember you can always pull up a, what's it called, scratch pad. If I had done a scratch pad here, or a calculator page, where would I go to get the area underneath that curve? I would go to normal CDF, which I would then hit, what's the button before I can get to menu, thank you. So there's this weird thing where I'm trying to teach you right now. This is why you don't hear when I tell you things. Pay attention, thank you. All of that group 4 actually. Where am I going to go next? Stats, or don't forget you can go to probability. Now where? Distributions. There's our norm CDF, right? Now, this is again why you want to generally sketch it out, because if I'm looking for what's less than negative 0.8, where would I shade?
To the left.
To the left. So what's the lower bound? So what did you say, Max? Right, so super negative, technically negative infinity. You don't have to go that negative, but we can leave it there. The upper bound. And since I have a z-score, remember that mean is 0, standard deviation is 1, and once again, 21.19%, right? Or an area of 0.2118. Questions, comments, concerns about that answer? All right, so I do believe that wasn't the only correct answer, though. Maria's score was better than the mean. I only had 3 students respond that way. I want you to go ahead and look at this normal distribution. Did she score better than the average? No. So we want to pay attention to that. Remember, for a z-score to be negative, that means that you're scoring below the average. Because what is the z-score formula?
Mean minus
the number minus
X minus X bar. Okay, don't forget that can be X minus mu divided by sigma as well. But notice that's why it's negative, because if you take her value and you subtract a mean that is larger, what kind of number do you get out of this? You get a negative. And that's actually where the last question, or the third question comes up, or answer choice. Maria's score was 76. I don't know what her score is right now, right? But what things do I know out of that equation, Madison?
I'm gonna be real, okay?
Okay.
Sometimes I be wanting to ask stuff, and I don't be knowing what to ask. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't be understanding like how to ask it. You know what I'm saying?
I have no clue what you're saying right now, because here's the thing. If you have a question, start with any question. Where are you lost?
The whole thing.
You can't be like the whole
No, no,
thing.
no, okay.
No.
See,
Because did you know that you could sketch out that normal graph?
No,
Do you know how I got?
I'm real lost, dude. I'm real lost.
How many times you come to tutoring when you said you were going to come to tutoring?
None.
Okay.
But I
Have you watched a single video on YouTube? Are you doing what you need to learn and grow as efficiently as
I have been
possible?
doing my homework.
Okay, but if you're doing your homework and you're doing it wrong and not getting the help to make sure you're doing it right,
I watched a video on how to do z-scores, but I'm so low confused. I ain't gonna lie.
how to do what?
Z-scores. On YouTube.
Z-scores?
That was like a whole 3-minute video, but I'm a little lost. I ain't gonna lie.
Okay, so I also posted a video where I broke it down probably more heavily than a 3-minute video. But all a z-score is first, you need to recognize a z-score is the number of standard deviations from the mean. Right? So you find the difference from the mean, you divide it by the standard deviation. That tells you how many standard deviations it is from the mean. So notice Maria's score was 0.8 standard deviations below the mean. That's exactly correct because it's negative, so it's below the mean.
So it would be 0.8 minus, what's the mean?
No, ma'am.
What would it be?
I told you the z-score was negative 0.8.
Yeah.
So where would the negative 0.8 go in this equation?
X.
Ma'am, it's a z-score. I'm giving you z.
Oh!
So where's it going to go?
Yeah.
Thank you. Z is equal to negative 0.8.
Yeah, true. I do that.
See, you know, the only reason I'm frustrated right now is because I know how intelligent you are and you're not even trying to use your brain, you're just trying to say stuff.
I'm struggling.
Because you're just saying stuff instead of slowing down and thinking through it. Come on. Z is equal to negative 0.8, so I know negative 0.8 can be substituted in for
Z. Yeah.
Z. Remember what I'm asking, or I'm saying is that her actual score was 76. You could substitute that in to check, but technically I don't know what her score was. Minus, what is the mean? 80 divided by 5, the standard deviation. How would I solve this equation to figure out her score? If I multiply both sides by 5, starting here, and that's what we want to focus on, what's 5 divided by 5? Whenever you're multiplying and dividing, you want to create a 1, because what is 1 times x minus 80? X minus 80. Whatever I do to one side of the equation, I gotta do to the other. You got calculators for this. 5 times negative 0.8. Negative 4. Now what would I do to finish solving this equation? Right, I want to add, because what's negative 80 plus 80?
0.
0. And what is x plus 0? Well, but what's x plus 0? X. Whenever you're multiplying and dividing, you want to create a 1. Whenever you're adding and subtracting, you want to create that 0. Negative 4 plus 80 is 76. That's how I got that.
So that's her score?
Say again?
That's her score.
That was her actual score.
Yeah, right.
So that was correct. 1, 3, and 4 were all correct. Say again, Jason. What do you mean the other half? Oh, you're talking about this part? So remember, this means exactly the same thing. If you have a population mean, though, you're using mu, and if you have a population standard deviation, you're using sigma. But that's exactly the same. That's just for a sample, and that's for a sample. So this is if you have sample values, right? Remember, those are your statistics. Right. Because that's just a statistic. That's just if you have a sample, you're using this formula, but that means exactly the same thing as this, right? The value minus the mean divided by the standard deviation. The value minus the mean divided by standard deviation. The difference is, do you have a statistic or do you have parameters for the population? Okay? Yes, Salita.
These words going on.
Then you might want to go back in through your book and study the vocabulary that has been bolded throughout the entire unit. Because we have talked multiple times that a statistic is a value for a sample, whereas a parameter is a value for a population. So that mu is a population mean, so we call it a parameter. That sigma is a population standard deviation, so it is a different parameter of spread. Okay, that's all that is. Probably should have studied. Guys, you got to study for my class. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know. I'm going to provide you all the supports you need, but you do need to study for my class. I take this very seriously. I take learning and education seriously. Yes, ma'am, Malaysia.
Why we can't just like put on all our notes on like paper? Like you know how you usually write your notes on paper. I don't like put them in different pages. It just like.
I know, it must be really tough. You could go through the notebook or through the book and write down your own notes to consolidate it if you want. That's your choice.
No, but I'm saying I need it to be in one section though.
You want it to be all your notes in one little section?
Yeah, like a.
So could you go through your book and reflect on the things that we've studied and write them down on a separate sheet of paper?
I mean, yeah, but.
It sounds like you want me to do the work for you.
No, I'm saying.
You could give us the notes and we write them down.
Basically.
Oh, so you want something easy?
No.
No.
I'm saying, do you want
Like
me
you
to
know how like
know
in history class,
a note
you write
section.
notes?
That's the book!
That's too much to flip.
This
through.
many
It's all
pages.
really
So
going
you
through.
want it easy.
But
I'm not, that's not my job to
But
make it
that's-
easy. My job is to
that's-
teach you and
that's
give you good
quicker.
learning. No ma'am. Okay, we go through everything. It's in the book. Now, you want something easy? The book does have you hooked up. Look at the very end of all these lessons on page M5 56. No, 53 is where it starts. M5-53.
Okay.
What do you see there?
Keep turning.
No, ma'am. What else do you see
said-
there?
Oh.
All
Just-
the lessons.
All the things you didn't get.
But what does it say in bold?
Interpreting data and normal distribution stuff.
So you got a summary there. But I will say this, guys. That summary is not going to go into all the details. I promise you this. If you don't go through and take the time to read through your notes on the book, then you're not going to learn as much. There are extra details that I'm going to cover. You want a separate sheet of paper, a single thing with notes, go through the book and write your own notes from it. You will learn more the more you write it down. And that's not me trying to be a butthole or anything like that. I'm trying to give you good skills. You need to learn how to do that. We're working through it. You're making sense in your small groups, and the things that y'all are missing, we're talking about as a whole class discussion, just like we did with that 1 to 100 task, right? You may not like it, but I promise you will learn more if you reflect that way. Yes, ma'am, Salita.
What page does this course still start on?
It's the lesson 3. Lesson 2 is empirical rule. Lesson 3, by the way, if you go look at the beginning of the lesson, right? I think it literally says z-scores and percentiles, and look under key terms that's on that page. Z-scores and
So,
percentiles.
like, if I go
So
to-
like the very first page, listen guys, the very first page of a lesson literally summarizes with learning goals and key terms exactly what you're supposed to learn out of that lesson. Okay? The information's there. Go find it. Madison.
Sometimes I just don't know how to plug things in. You know what I'm saying? Like,
We
No,
talking
no,
about
stop,
that.
listen.
Equation,
What does it say is equal to negative 0.8?
the z square.
The z. So what's negative 0.8 going to be substituted into?
The z.
Z. That's it. Don't make it more complicated than that. The mean is 80. So what are we going to substitute in for the mean value?
80.
Okay.
So now I'm getting confused because then x is left open. And then you gotta work that out.
Oh man, it must be really difficult to solve an equation. You haven't
I
been
got,
doing
I
that
got
since
the
middle
whole
school.
deviation part.
So if you're struggling with that part of it, Madison, come into tutoring.
I got you. I
Yeah,
know that.
I'm here. I'll be here this afternoon. I will be here tomorrow morning. I will be here Wednesday afternoon, and I will be here Friday morning.
That's he stand for Tuesday or Thursday.
Thursday game.
I'll make it an R. Oh no, that is Tuesday. If it's a Thursday, I'll make it an R. That's what they do at UA as well.
Wait.
Yes,
Can
Destiny.
I come on?
That's
Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah.
Guys, you don't have to ask to come. It's tutoring hours. Huh?
that also gives me the
Sometimes
excuse
Yes.
to practice.
I don't see that.
I'll be there.
You don't see
Yes,
Oh,
bro.
Okay, now I will clarify, I do have meetings this week with teachers around the county because of
COVID.
leadership thing that I'm doing or leading. And so I may have to change that Wednesday meeting to Thursday, but I'll figure that out today and I'll let you know. I will also, as a quick note, let you know, we will have to move the test. I found out today that we are going to do something called iReady testing. You probably did it last year. It sucks. Yeah, complain about all you want. I hate it even more. But we have to do it for one block, Monday through Wednesday, so probably Tuesday or Wednesday. That'll push our test back to Friday.
We started today.
They gave me more
Say
time
it
to
again.
study.
We started today.
Well, we don't have the math cards, so no. It'll either be Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't tell you any more than that.
Can we just gonna do 2 days get over with?
No.
I can't determine that. They are coordinating when the MacBook cards get to different teachers. I wish I could give you more.
You know
So-
what grades going in what order?
Say again?
You know what grades are going in what order?
Say that one more time.
You know what grades are going in what order?
9th through 11th. And it's not really like what order is it going in because, you know, we have a super mixed class in here. I don't know where in the world I put. I'll have to figure it out later. Okay, today we're doing Z-scores and percentiles. Before we do our understanding check, hopefully getting as far as we can into normal distributions and probability. Understanding check on the last 40 minutes of class today. Here's our objectives. We are also going to quickly look at the talk that I gave back to you. Calculate and interpret a Z-score. Use a Z-score to calculate the probability of an event or the percentile of a value. By the way, I should have mentioned it. Well, one, I do want to point out all of these things that on our objectives we just did in the bell ringer. Every single one of them. Okay, so we're going to continue working with it today. One thing I do want to point out, because it came up a little bit on Friday, but we didn't get as far as I wanted to with it. So, you know how we had 21.18% scored less than her Z-score? So what we would say is that she is in the 21st percentile. That percentile, what that means is the percent that's scored at or lower than your score.
We did say that.
Yeah, I thought I mentioned it, but I know I didn't get to it in third block, so I want to re-emphasize that. So whenever you see a percentile, we're talking about a percent at or below what you scored, okay? From there, so talk the talk, let's look at this quickly. So I do want to point this out. Almost everyone got number one right in saying that the mean is 6 p.m. You didn't have to put the mu there, but you know what a lot of us forgot to do that it is not here right now? Context. What 6 p.m. What does that mean?
That's the minute.
Because that's what it says.
And putting it on.
Like, that's what it says where she like eats dinner originally, something like that. Like the
See, when you be careful, notice right here how it says most days. So that's the average time that she eats dinner.
That's kind of like what I was trying to get out of it.
But there's a difference in that language. That's not her start, right? there is no real start here. It's an average time that she eats dinner most days. Typically, what we talk about when we talk about a center, and I need you to understand this, right? This is a small distinction, but I want you to get this before we do our understanding check. A measure of center is a typical value that occurs. So typically, or on average, Yesenia eats dinner at 6 p.m. That's what we should have said for context. Okay? Now I need you all to pay attention to standard deviation because nobody got this right. Okay? Nobody got standard deviation right. Yes, Lita.
Why did you mark it off on destiny paper? But you marked it off on mine.
Aw, let me pitch a fit when Mr. Kinney was trying to give me feedback instead of just grading something.
But you counted off for me.
It's not a grade, Salita.
Oh,
I just said that.
my bad.
All it is, I scored it as a 1, 2, 3, or 4 to give you quick feedback on whether how well you understood it. No one scored above a 3. I'm going over the things that we need to pay attention to. So, listen, a whole lot of us talked about 1 standard deviation below the mean is 545 and 1 standard deviation above the mean is 615. And that's accurate, but that's not what this question is asking. What do we mean by a standard deviation? The value is 15 minutes.
The range,
Not the range.
the mean.
Not
No,
the mean.
hey, you know what I just said, I'm not.
See, this is why we need to go back through all of our notes because they don't talk about this in the book, but we define this in class. A standard deviation is a typical amount data values differ from the mean.
So what were we supposed to answer? Like,
So this is without context, but that's a big part of it. So typically,
But everyone.
Yesenia, and that's how you pronounce it, typically Yesenia eats, I would say Yesenia's dinner time,
So you just plug it in for day and night, day and night.
right, dinner time differs from 6 p.m. by 15 minutes. That's it. What do we mean by a standard deviation is 15 minutes? Typically, her dinner time will differ from that 6 p.m. by 15 minutes.
So you just straight up plug it into the depth of the room.
Right. Don't make it more complicated than that. What do we mean by standard deviation? A typical amount, the data values differ from the mean. So typically, Yesenia's dinner time differs from the mean by 15 minutes. That's what we mean. Okay? You need to know what a standard deviation means. Okay? Overall, standard deviation or our normal curves are pretty good. You need to be careful about making sure that it's clear 1 standard deviation is at that point of inflection. And then we were good at calculating percent and area for the most part. Just be careful and remember, so I'm going to draw this here, this is a part of your evidence, right? So here's my mean, and remember that mean is 6 p.m. Here's 1 standard deviation above, 615. 1 below, 545. 6:30, and I'm going to run out of room because I'm using marker, so I'm going to stop here, right? But what we're trying to find is between 6:15 and 6:30. Shade that region and figure out how you can know that. Now you can memorize it, that's 13.5%, but what I recommend is remembering what percent's between 2 below and 2 standard deviations above. 95, right? So when I'm only looking at half, that's 47.5%. And what percent is between 0 and 1? Right, because that's half of that 68. So if I take 34 from 47.5, I am looking at 13.5% for that there. In context, what does that mean? 13.5% of the time, Yesenia eats between 6:15 and 6:30. That's what we mean with that area there.
Are you gonna count off our curves on like what?
I don't count off, you show me evidence of your understanding. I know you don't like that answer, but that's the truth. I don't count off, I base it on your evidence of understanding. So consider that. Might be slightly better evidence with a better curve, but if everything else is good to go, a 4 versus a 4 plus, right? But also if you show me strong enough evidence in general, you'll be okay in my class. Okay. Let's continue forward from there. Man, I wish I could figure out what in the world I did. Oh well, alright. So, above, below, and between the lines, we're going to look. So we recapped z-scores already, finding the area off of the table and off the graph. So right here, let's look at a little bit more with percentiles. We're just going to do one more so that we can finish up this lesson and move on. Actually, I think this is the last page, isn't it? Yeah, talk after. So let's look at this.
Okay,
There you go. M5-38, yep.
we already started these?
Yep.
We finished?
Nope. We got through A. And I think I had y'all work, maybe I didn't. Okay, so B, and so this is where we need to be careful. When we look at B, would a teen in the 90th percentile send and receive more or fewer than 100 text messages per day? Explain your reasoning. When I look at B, okay, 90th percentile, would that be the area under the curve, or would that be the z-score?
Slow down.
The z-score.
Well, no, it's added. So we need
So we need to remember what we mean by a percentile is right here. A percentile is a data value for which a certain percent of the data is below the data value. So is that a percent area under the curve, or is that a z-score?
The first one.
That's area under the curve. We're talking about percentiles, we're talking about percents. So what area goes with 90th percentile? The area is, because remember, we don't see percents on the table. What's that area?
0.5.
0 point what?
5.
I don't think so.
0.9.
Right, 0.9.
Well, front end 0.5.
The first one was 0.5, right?
I was about to say.
The area would be 0.9, so this is where we want to go to our z-score table. So this is where you got to be careful. Are we looking on the inside of the table, or are we looking at the z-scores on the outside to start?
The outside.
So remember, hey, Elijah, slow down and think about it. This is why I just talked about it. Do we have an area or do we have a z-score?
Area.
We have an area, and that's what you have to pay attention to. We don't have a z-score. We're going to look for a z-score, but I have area, which is on the inside. Remember, area is what is on the inside in general.
Right.
So what do we need to find on the
inside.
area?
The inside.
Okay, so look through with your table. Take about 60 seconds. Try to find that area of 0.9. We'll come back together in just a minute.
I think 0.1.
I think it's on
Can it have,
42.
I will say you probably won't be able to get it exact. You'll have to approximate it.
Okay, then I think I got it.
Okay?
Well, come here first.
0.9,
You talk with your group.
0.5.
I said talk with your group.
0.0. I mean,
Please come in.
0.9.
That's,
Yeah, that's what I got.
that's the one I saw.
You're going to have to approximate it. It's not going to be exact.
We looking for a plus 1 0.9.
This is the area.
That's all I see.
Hey, I think. Well, you so smart.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I need a hand up to tell me what z-score thinking. Tori, I saw your hand up.
I was just.
Oh, you're just asking. Oh, I got you now. You don't have to respond. Anthony, I did see your hand going up second after her.
0.9, 0.15.
Say it again.
0.9, 0.9015. That's the,
So I'm going to 0.15.
mm,
If I look at
my bad,
0.15,
This one.
No, you got,
we ain't got, but you said we ain't had no Z-score, right?
you got the
1.2.
Z-score 1.2.
What?
I would say we need to find the z-score. We have the area.
1.2 then.
1.2.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so 1.2,
1.29.
1.29,
All the way down.
right there.
That's what I was saying.
I gotta ask. Do you think that's close to 0.9,
No,
or
I think it's 0.8997. So I
isn't
think
that only 3 10,000ths
True.
away versus
Yeah,
15 10,000ths?
Yeah.
Is it gonna matter a ton?
No.
No, but I will say I think 0.8997 is more accurate.
That's all right.
So my z-score then would be,
1.28.
okay. Now I gotta point this out and I want you to pay attention. Why should we have known right away that we were looking for positive z-scores?
The area.
Say again, Gabby. Well, the area is always positive. Remember, we have z-scores, positive z-scores here, and negative z-scores here. That percentile told me immediately that I needed a positive z-score.
Wait, what are we looking for?
Okay? Let's look at this then. If I look at C and I'm looking at the 10th percentile, I immediately know that it needs to be a negative z-score.
Why?
Oh yeah, because what's a z-score of 0? What percentile is that? 50. A z-score of 0 is in the 50th percentile. It's right in the middle. So if I'm looking at more than 50%, then it has to be what kind of z-score? Positive. And if I'm looking at less than 50%, I automatically know it is negative. We good with that idea?
Does that say that somewhere in the book? Or would you need to
Would you
automatically
just
do it?
explain how it works?
I know, but I'm
Right
saying-
here, look. Right here, Elijah. You
Right.
see how that's my mean?
True.
That's a z of equal to 0, right? So if I'm only looking at what's less than that mean, what percent of data is that? Automatically less. What percent of data is less than the mean? It's half of it, right? So it's 50%?
And it's gonna be negative.
Well, no. The mean has 50% of the data, or 50% of the data is less than the mean, right?
Right.
Okay, so if I'm looking at less than that, doesn't that have to be less than 50%?
Yeah.
But if I have a or area that's more than 50%, what kind of z-scores are to the right of 50? They're positive. That's how I know. Okay? So within your small groups, go ahead and use this z-score to find out how many text messages that teen is sending. Don't forget, you now have a z-score. You also, I think, have a mean number of text messages and a standard deviation. Find out exactly how many text messages that student is sending.
Don't say those,
0.1.
Remember, you have a z-score, you have a mean, and you have a standard deviation. And you want the actual value. So what can you use to find the actual value when you have z? That formula, right? You have z, you have the mean, and you have the standard deviation.
I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't gonna lie
Yeah.
I'm just
For what? Neither. You already have the z-score, right? So you have a z-score. You have the mean given to you somewhere. Yeah, the mean was, oh, it's right here. The mean is 100 text messages per day, and you have the standard deviation, right? If you have the z-score, the mean, and the standard deviation, what can you use to find the actual value? It's also still on the board.
Area is.
You already had, you had those percentiles given, right?
It is
So you have, look up on the board. What do you see up there where you need a Z-score?
Well, you're saying, you just, okay.
You have a Z-score. The Z-score formula is literally a Z-score formula. Everything before. So it's going to be on, I will say I think I have Z-scores and finding the area between curves is like one of the questions, but empirical rule and creating histogram and describing data. Yeah. But it will not be on this activity 3.2. Yes.
0.10.
Alright.
So that 90, isn't that the percentile? And that's what gave you this Z-score. I think it was 1.2. Don't forget that. You don't have the number of text messages, so you use a variable for that. Right?
That she could have 90% was below, like the 90% top. See how it was below the.
Well, that means 90%
It's above,
of,
right? It's positive.
I would say, hold on, listen. 90% of people sent less text messages than this person.
That's what I'm getting confused at. What do you mean by that? Like, that's what.
Nope.
90% sent less.
Look, so if you have a standard nomenclature, which I'm trying to draw this upside down, sorry. If you look at the mean, what percent of people sent text messages less than the mean? Less than the mean.
Oh, less than that.
Right.
How is it negative 1.2?
No.
You point at.
Look right here, what percent of data, what percent of data is
All you're
less than the
doing
mean?
is filling data.
From here to here. Thank you. So 50% is here. So if we're looking at 90%, it has to be over here. So if you have something that's more than 50%, is that above or below the mean? Right, that's why we got a Z as a positive 1.28, because that student is sending 1.28 standard deviations of text above the mean. No, 90% of data values were less than that score. No, 90% are below that student. It doesn't say above or below the mean. Remember, 50% is less than the mean. Thank you. Okay, so guys, do not forget, you have a Z-score, you have a mean, you have a standard deviation, so you're going to use the Z-score formula. That's literally what it's called. It's a formula for Z-score. Yes, Tori.
Okay, I did that part. I did that. I'm confused on how you find, how we found.
So remember, we have an area. So from that area, we go to our Z-score table, and we find that area on the Z-score table, and you can find the Z from there. We'll do one more with C to do that. Okay, let's look right here. So what's my Z-score? 1.28. What's the value for the number of text messages sent? That's what we're trying to figure out, so we need a variable. What's the mean? 100. Standard deviation. And then what do I need to do to solve?
Multiply 25 by both sides. It cancels out.
No, be more accurate. What does it do?
It turns to a one.
Creates a 1. 25 divided by 25 is 1. Okay?
25 is
Say again.
deviation, and number one.
It was given to you, yeah. I think that was 32 text messages.
X minus 100.
Okay.
To cancel out 100, you're gonna add.
No, ma'am, we're not just canceling it out. What are we doing? To make a 0, be careful and be intentional with your language. I know what you're saying, but we need to work on being more intentional with that language. So how many texts does this student send?
132.
Okay. From there.
That's for B.
Yes. So when I look at C, because I agree I'm not going to work through the whole thing, but we need to learn how to get the Z-score off of it. Actually, let me pause. What are your questions before we look quickly at C? Yes,
How'd you
yeah.
get 1.28?
Okay, we're gonna look one more with C about how to get the z-score. Are you good with once we have the z-score, how to solve that equation? Okay, so we're gonna look at one more with C, how to get the z-score, okay? So, when I look at C and it tells me the 10th percentile, what does that tell me?
It's the exact opposite.
Not just the exact opposite, what else? 0 point what? 10. And you're not necessarily wrong, we'll look at that in a second. But what I want to make sure we understand is that the area under the standard normal curve, right, is 0.1. That's where it is. I've been looking for that. Okay, so the area is 0.1. So I'm going to go to the z-score table. And I'm going to look for an area of what? 0.1. And again, this is what we need to consider. Do we want to look at the positive z-scores or negative z-scores? And so before you answer, just want to reemphasize, what percent of area is less than the mean?
To the left. 50.
50% is less. So if I'm looking at 10%, it needs to be somewhere over here. I'm not saying that's exact, but that means my z-score needs to be negative. Because 50% of data is less than the mean, I know that an area of 0.1 means that my z is less than 0. It's a negative value. So I'm only looking at the z-score table over here. Okay, I'm only looking at the negatives. And again, the z-score is on the outside. I'm looking on the inside for an area of 0.1. Take 30 seconds, work with your small group to identify where in this table is something close to 0.1.
That's the
Yeah, negative. You just
Okay? If as a group you found it, I need someone to come and circle where it is on the board. Come on, Alasia. Well, Alasia, raise your hand, so I'll get Alasia to do it. Okay. Show me where it is. Show me that area of 0.1.
Hold on, I'm circling these or the
Just the area. The 0.1 area.
She ain't got glasses on.
Okay?
Need my glasses.
Okay? Does anybody want to push back on that and give me a different one? I want someone I haven't heard
Oh,
from yet.
come on.
Gabby, come on with it.
Wait.
No way, raise your hand, no way.
See, this is why we need to collaborate in our small groups. Hey, can I get that marker back? Real quick?
I was gonna raise my hand.
You was slowly there,
There you go.
I forgot. I'll break my glass.
Okay. Somebody else wants to push back a little bit more? Jackson.
Oh, you said 0.1.
Sorry, Evelyn.
That's my boy.
I should have gotten you, but go on, Jackson.
That's my boy.
Okay? Let's go. Okay. So here's what I want to point out. Alasia, this is what you want to be careful about.
Oh.
What you circled is 0.099. That's closest to 0.01. We wanted 0.1. Okay?
Right.
This, Gabby, was very good. There was just a couple values that were better. If you look right here, this is a 0.1003. That's just a little bit closer. Does that make sense? Okay? From here, we need to find the z-score associated with that. So I come to the left, and I have a z of negative 1.2. But remember, this only goes to the tenths. I need to go up to find the hundredths. There's my z of negative 1.28. Does that make sense? Okay.
Already?
Yes.
No. That's a note for me that we need to start the understanding check.
No way. I was excited.
Okay, so we've already done, I'll say this. I jumped ahead a little bit. 2 and 3 is more where we're supposed to actually do the calculations. We've already done that. So we are done with lesson 3. I am not going to assign, I might do this talk later. I'm not going to assign it as homework. Actually, hold on one second. Hold on. I'm pushing the homework that was due on Wednesday back to Thursday since we're moving the test.
Wait, is that
What?
that's
What's
I'm gonna have it in the final slide, so I'll put that up while you're doing the understanding check, okay? I'm gonna add this talk the talk to be due on, let me look at it one more time real quickly. I'll make this talk the talk due on Wednesday.
M540, right?
Yes.
What?
Okay. So I will add it in, it'll be on your final slide. Please clear your desk completely. Oh, actually, have your homework out that's due today. And I will come and collect that when I am giving out the understanding checks. I believe that the homework, actually I'll look in a second. The homework is M5-31. All right. Practice number 22, that's what's due today. Have that out. I will collect it. Huh? Yes, you are allowed to have the calculators, okay? Just no textbooks. There's the assignments. I'll be grading homework while you are working on this. I don't have an answer. Hold on. Hey.
Okay.
No, yeah, the rest of the class period, so 40 minutes.
40 minutes.
Yep.
40.
No, 3-0, that's not 40.
That's crazy.
What's crazy?
Okay, now she put it out. It's like, I was trying. It's the beginning.
Can you give it to me today? It will be late.
I want to talk about it.
Don't be rude. Can you give me more?
Alright, next one.
You start.
Why didn't you just do it off the other line? That is due Wednesday. Oh, hold on a second.
Let's do Wednesday.
Look, it's up on the board. So the one that's currently due on Wednesday is now going to be due on Thursday. And I will make that change in just a second. Please do.
What is wrong?
I will say this, if you want to write it on a separate sheet of paper or just do it on here, just make sure that you always turn this in with it, okay? Y'all for all getting this done. Ideally, if you need to do that after the understanding check, though. Yeah, I just like to have both of them together. All right, couple of quick notes on the understanding check. Why didn't I do that in my calculator? All right, really quick notes on this understanding check. I do want you to notice on number 3, for maximum evidence of understanding on C and D, you need to use the Z-score table once and the calculator once. I just realized I never actually printed out the Z-score table. I will do that right now. Huh? On number 3 on the back, for maximum evidence of your understanding on C and D, you need to use the Z-score table to calculate the probability or percentage, and you need to use the calculator to calculate the percentage. Don't forget, also if you want guys, you can have your scoring rubric out as a reminder of what I'm looking for, because I am looking for your justification. Why are you putting the answers that you are?
How long do we have to do this?
40
The
minutes.
rest of the block.
Oh, thank you.
I will print out the Z-scores tables right now.
Samaya.
I should not hear talking.